Why is it that two people can grow up in the same town, go to the same school, have similar opportunities, similar intelligence, and yet one creates an extraordinary life for themselves, while the other spends years wondering why nothing ever seems to change? It happens every single day. You see two people read the same books, attend the same seminars, listen to the same podcasts, set the same goals. One succeeds, one doesn't. Why is that? Most people think the answer is talent. Others believe it's luck. Some blame their education, their background, their age, or their circumstances. But after spending decades studying personal development and watching thousands of people try to improve their lives, I've become convinced that the answer lies somewhere completely different. It lies in one picture, the picture you carry of yourself. Let me explain. Every morning before you walk out your front door, you're already making decisions. What you'll say, how you'll walk, how you'll respond, what opportunities you'll notice, how much confidence you'll have, how much money you'll believe you're capable of earning, how successful you believe you deserve to become. Now, here's the fascinating part. Most of those decisions happen before you're consciously aware of them. They're being made by the picture you hold of yourself, your self-image, or as many people call it today, your identity. Personally, I prefer the phrase self-image because it's beautifully simple. It's the picture you've accepted of being true about yourself. And here's what I've learned. You will almost always behave in a way that's consistent with that picture. If your self-image says, I'm shy, you'll behave like a shy person. If your self-image says, I'm not good with money, your financial decisions will more than often support that belief. If your self-image says, I'm confident, I'm capable, I'm resourceful, you'll naturally begin making decisions that reflect that picture. That's why I often say you'll never consistently outperform the picture you hold of yourself. You might outperform it for a day, a week, or even a month, but unless the picture changes, your subconscious will quietly guide you back towards what feels familiar. Not because you're weak, not because you lack discipline, but because your subconscious is always trying to remain consistent with the identity it believes is true. Now, most people spend years trying to change the results without ever changing the picture producing those results. It's a bit like standing in front of a mirror trying to change the reflection without changing the person standing in front of it. It doesn't work. The mirror isn't the problem. The reflection isn't the problem. The picture is. And that's why today's masterclass is so important, because if you can change the person in the mirror, you will eventually change everything the mirror reflects, including your future. Now, let me ask you a question here. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to walk into a room and immediately command attention? Not because they're the loudest, not because they're the smartest, not because they're the richest. There's just something about them. So like a quiet confidence, a calm certainty, a belief in themselves. Now compare that with someone who walks into exactly the same room, head down, avoiding eye contact, hoping nobody notices them. Here's what's fascinating. Before either person spoke in a single word, they'd already introduced themselves, not through their voice, but through their self-image. Think about that. Long before the world responds to you, you've already responded to yourself. And the world often mirrors back the picture you're projecting. That's why I call it your internal mirror. The world doesn't always respond to who you want to become. It responds to who you believe you already are. Now, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting life is always fair. We all experience setbacks, disappointments, loss, unexpected challenges. Believe me, I've certainly had my share of them. But what I've discovered is this. The event doesn't define you. The meaning you attach to the event does. That's why two people can experience exactly the same setback, yet create completely different futures. One person says, "This proves I'll never succeed." The other says, "This is preparing me for something greater." Same event, different meaning, different identity, different future. That's one of the reasons I love the success principle that my mentor Jack Canfield taught me. E plus R equals O, which is event plus response equals outcome. Most people spend their lives trying to change the event. And in my experience, successful people focus on changing the response, because once your response changes, your outcome inevitably changes too. But here's the interesting part. Your response doesn't come from the event. It comes from your self-image. Think about that one. If you believe you're resilient, you respond differently. If you believe you're resourceful, you respond totally differently. If you believe you're capable, you respond differently. That's why changing your self-image changes everything else. Years ago, when I moved from being a professional musician into the world of sales in real estate, I had to completely reinvent the picture I held of myself. Being on stage behind a drum set and standing in front of a customer required two completely different versions of me. I could have carried the old picture with me. I could have kept telling myself, I'm just a musician. And believe me, for a while I did. But if I'd carried on doing that, I would have limited my future to my past. Instead, I began creating a new picture. Not overnight, not perfectly, but deliberately. Every book I read, every seminar I attended, every mentor I learned from was helping me redraw the picture I held of myself. And something remarkable began happening. As the picture changed, my decisions changed. As my decisions changed, my confidence grew. And as my confidence grew, my results improved. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was simply the natural consequence of changing the picture in my internal mirror. You see, most people are trying to create a different future while still introducing themselves to the world through old identity. Imagine trying to drive to a destination you've never visited while insisting on using yesterday's maps. How successful do you think that journey would be? Probably not very. Yet that's exactly what millions of people do every single day. They dream about tomorrow while living from yesterday's self-image. No wonder they feel frustrated. No wonder they feel stuck. They're asking for new destination while refusing to change the map. So here's a question I'd love you to think about. If someone had never met you before and they only observed the way you speak, the way you walk, the decisions you make, the standards you hold yourself to, what picture would they say you have of yourself? Would they see someone who's growing, someone who's learning, someone who believes in their future? Or would they see someone who's still allowing yesterday to decide today? Now, don't answer that question too quickly. Just sit with it for a while, because your answer may reveal more about your future than your goals ever will. So, how do we begin changing our internal mirror? The answer might surprise you. You don't begin by changing your circumstances. You begin by changing what you repeatedly expose your mind to. I mean, think about this. Every single day, your mind is being programmed by what you watch, by what you listen to, by the conversations you have, by the books you possibly read, by the people you spend time with, by the words you speak to yourself. The question isn't whether you're being programmed. The question is, who's doing the programming? Is it social media? Is it the evening news? Negative friends? Old habits? Or is it you? Because if you don't consciously program your own mind, believe me, someone else eventually will. That's why successful people become incredibly protective of what they allow into their minds. They understand something most people overlook. The mind is like a garden. If you don't intentionally plant flowers, weeds are going to grow naturally. You don't have to work hard to grow weeds. You don't have to plan them at all. They simply just appear. But if you want roses, they require intention and attention. Your mind works exactly the same way. That's why every morning you have a choice. You can feed your doubts or you can feed your dreams. You can reinforce yesterday or you can begin creating tomorrow. Now, here's something I'd like you to try tomorrow morning. Before you look in the mirror, stop for just 60 seconds. That's all, just 60 seconds. Close your eyes, ask yourself one simple question. Who am I becoming? Not what do I have to do today? Not what's on my calendar. Ask, who am I becoming? Because the answer to that question will influence every decision you make. If today you're becoming someone who's healthy, your choices begin changing. Or if you're becoming someone who's confident, your conversations begin changing. And if today you're becoming someone who's financially successful, your standards begin changing. Everything changes because the picture changes. And remember, the internal mirror always comes first. The outer world follows. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned was this: people don't get what they want, they get what they're prepared to accept. You might want to read that again in your own mind. People don't get what they want, they get what they're prepared to accept. Your standards reveal your self-image. The way you allow people to treat you, the way you speak to yourself, the excuses you tolerate, the opportunities you ignore, the dreams you postpone, they're all reflections of your internal mirror. Now let me ask you something that might feel a little uncomfortable. If your life stayed exactly the same for the next, say, 5 years, would you be happy? Again, don't answer too quickly. Just really think about it for a moment. Because if the answer is no, then perhaps the person who needs to change isn't the world around you. Perhaps it's the picture you've been carrying of yourself. But here's some wonderful news. Pictures can be redrawn. Every artist begins with a blank canvas. Every author begins with a blank page. Your future begins with a new picture. And that's why I believe your greatest responsibility isn't simply earning more or achieving more or owning more. Your greatest responsibility is becoming more aware, more courageous, more compassionate, more disciplined, more authentic, more of the person you were created to be. Because when you become more, your life naturally reflects it. Now, I'd like to leave you with a challenge. For the next 7 days, every time you look in the mirror, I don't want you to ask, how do I look? Instead, ask, who am I becoming? Then smile. Stand a little taller, lift your shoulders, look at yourself in the eyes, and remind yourself, I'm becoming the person my future needs me to be. Do that every day, not because it magically changes your life overnight, which it can be, by the way, but because repetition changes identity, and identity changes everything. Imagine doing that every day for a year. Do you think you'd begin seeing yourself differently? Of course you would, because that's how the subconscious learns. It learns through repetition, through emotion, through consistency. That's how your old self-image was created, and that's exactly how your new self-image will be created too. Before we finish, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Imagine meeting yourself 10 years from today. The happiest version of you, the healthiest version of you, the wealthiest version of you, the most peaceful version of you. What do you think that future version would say? I don't think they'd begin by talking about money or success or even achievements. I think they'd smile, look at you in the eye, and simply say, thank you for finally believing in me. Think about that for a moment. Maybe the life you've been searching for isn't waiting somewhere out there. Maybe it's waiting inside the person you're becoming. Because your future isn't created by the person you hope to become. It's created by the person you believe you already are. So, believe wisely, protect your internal mirror, challenge the old recordings, become the leader of your own mind, and most importantly, become the person your future is waiting for. If today's masterclass has helped you see yourself differently, I'd love you to leave a comment below and answer just one simple question. Who are you choosing to become? If you know someone who needs this message, share this masterclass with them. Sometimes one conversation really can change the direction of a person's life. And if you'd like to continue your journey, you'll find a collection of no-cost resources on my website, johnwilliamsglobal.com. They're designed to help you strengthen your self-image, reprogram limiting beliefs, and continue building the person you're capable of becoming. And if you're ready to grow much deeper, I'd love to invite you to explore my magnetic manifestation program. It's where we take these principles and put them into practice through a complete step-by-step process of transforming your identity from the inside out. I'd love to welcome you there. Remember, awareness creates transformation. The picture you hold of yourself creates the life you live. So, choose that picture carefully. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, keep growing, keep believing, and become the person you were born to be. This is John Williams reminding you that your vision, your beliefs, and your emotions are shaping your future right now. Choose wisely, live abundantly, keep dreaming big, and I'll see you in the next John Williams Global Masterclass. Take care.